Okay, great. I am a man commonly known as the President of the United States, but I think that title is a little too long, so I also go by Mr. P, Prez, and occasionally Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. But only on weekends and some holidays. That's not any shorter, it just sounds really cool. I'm in charge of the executive branch, not a tree branch, like the branches of government. I honestly don't know why it is called that, I just go with it. Article 6 of the Constitution. Article 2 of the Constitution states that I am responsible for approving laws made by Congress. They're like a group of old men who try and tell me what to do. I have the power to appoint the heads of 15 executive departments to make up the president's cabinet, not like your kitchen, and the heads of more than 50 independent federal commissions. And by heads, I mean people, just to clarify, let's not get weird. When I receive a legislation from Congress, I can either sign it or veto it. Congress can override my veto with a 2/3 majority vote in both houses. Who would try to override someone with a name like Commander-in-Chief? Sorry, that's not the point. P.S. An example of the president using their veto rights is in 1971 when Nixon vetoed the Comprehensive Child Care Development Act. This dashed any hopes of a universal, federally financed child daycare center.
Who can take your money with a twinkle in their eye? Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government. No, wait. Oh, shoot. Ugh, I'm on camera. Okay, Speaker of the House here speaking. No, pun intended. On behalf of the legislative branch. For time's sake, I'll just refer to us as Congress. Anyhow, our job is pretty simple in that it is mainly to make laws. Now, how often are we actually successful at that? Not very. Just because we have come up with the sweet idea of a pro forma session, which gives us the ability to sit there and listen to an announcement for 5 minutes, then, leave and go play golf for the rest of the day. Wait, did I say that out loud? Okay. Also, we're stuck working with the Senate because Congress is what is known as bicameral, meaning it has 2 houses. You see, when you get elected to Congress, you don't get the luxury of just going around, signing executive orders, making laws whenever you want to. No. You're stuck working with another group of people and have to go through a long, complicated process to even try to get something approved. Case in point. For example, a particular president a couple years back was bent on getting this Affordable Care Act approved. Debates between us and the Senate went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like a tennis match. But finally it went through and Obamacare was born. Next, even once you get it approved, you still have to go through the president, and he can throw the law out through a veto if he wants to. When did the executive branch get all this luxury? Then again, I still get paid buku bucks even after I get kicked out of office, so I guess I shouldn't complain. Moving on, we also initiate revenue bills, whatever that means. Impeach federal officials. I'm allergic! Maybe not quite exactly like that, but you get the picture. However, our job gets a lot more fun. We hold a lot of power, believe it or not. You see, when the electoral colleges can't decide on who to elect for president, we da-bomb, and we get to choose our country's next leader. We also get to work in the checks and balances system because, that president can get a little too ambitious and independent sometimes. By confirming his appointments that require consent. You might have seen this most recently in our working to confirm Kavanaugh as the Supreme Court Justice. Finally, we as Congress have the ability to declare war and ratify treaties. Yeah. That's the job of Congress, put simply, and as we like to say here in the House of Representatives, God bless America.
As a representative of the judiciary, I make sure that the rule of law is kept in the country and that no law contradicts the Constitution of the United States. I also ensure that Americans are given fair justice under the law and that they are able to live happy, free lives in the United States of America. In the United States, the federal courts have the sole power of interpretation of federal law. Basically, I get to say what a federal law means or doesn't mean. Another thing that I do is determine whether laws passed by the U.S. Congress or executive orders proclaimed by the presidency are unconstitutional. What this means is that I decide whether the president or the Congress is acting unconstitutionally. This process was established by the case Marbury v. Madison, where the Supreme Court established the process of judicial review, which allows it to do such a thing. Besides determining the constitutionality of a law, the judicial branch also provides general legal proceedings dealing with federal law, i.e. federal court cases. The Supreme Court, in its role as the highest court in the United States, provides a monitoring role over the rest of the United States, in particular the federal government. This means that the Supreme Court makes sure that the other branches of government, i.e. the legislative and executive branches, are acting within the bounds of the Constitution and not overstepping their boundaries. Another thing that the Supreme Court does in particular is mediate between the states. This means that whenever two or more states have a particular dispute that needs resolution, the Supreme Court steps in and provides an answer to their problem without them having to go to arms over it. The Supreme Court also decides cases involving foreign nationals and ambassadors within the United States. This means the Supreme Court decides whether international diplomats have broken federal law and can lawfully imprison and or fine them if they have. As you can see, being a member of the judiciary requires a great amount of responsibility, patience, and respect for the rule of law. We here in the judiciary make sure that you, the American people, are ensured your rights enshrined in the Constitution, and that you may live life to the fullest in the land of opportunity that is the United States of America.
The checks and balances system is also known as the separation of powers.
This allows each branch to function independently, but each one cannot act without approval from the others.
The term separation of powers is credited to Charles-Louis de Secondat, an 18th century French political philosopher whose writings influenced the Constitution.
The Senate confirms the president's nominations. Congress can impeach judges and remove them from office.
And the court can declare laws unconstitutional.
Congress approves presidential nominations and controls the budget. It can pass laws over the president's veto and can impeach the president and remove him or her from office.
The president can veto congressional legislation.
Go.
The president nominates judges.
The court can declare presidential acts unconstitutional.